Welcome to another episode of the Best Book Club, the podcast where I discuss the best stories with the best minds in the community. I'm your host, Saselam, aka NeufAtora, and this time, on this episode, I'm discussing just some favorites in the community, some favorite stories. And with me, I have hannsgutherson.
Hi, everybody.
ChaosReacon.
Hello.
And JCCW.
Yeah, what up?
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having us. It's always fun being back.
So good to be back. We should have all pretended to be each other, and they never would have known.
Oh, right. Yeah, because our voices sound so similar.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. So, as I said, we're just going to be doing a little bit of roundtable discussion on what our favorite stories in the community are. Did a previous recording of this. I messed it up. So hopefully we're not going to retread too much ground, but I didn't bring up a wheel this time. Does anybody want to go first? Since we're not picking anything for drafts.
How about we just go in the same order that we did last time? So
That works.
Hans, Neuf, yes, me.
Yeah, that works. All right,
Hans.
and we'll do the same.
Thanks, guys.
We'll do the same one at a time.
Cool. Or we just all yell out all of our faves at the same time, and
yeah, that's podcasting 101.
That'd be great.
Everybody talk.
So yeah,
over
my
each other.
first story that I have to pick, my top number one, for numerous reasons, is Luckily Unlucky by the great, magnificent Auntie Cherry. My favorite. All hail Auntie Cherry.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely.
And this is why I pulled up all of my stories before we started recording.
I mean, most of these ones I can just speak off the top of my mind about. I was just writing something down. Yeah, it really is one of the best stories out there. And there's no question about it. It's in my top 5 as well. Okay.
Although when we did the other type of recording, Hans stole this one from you.
Yes. Yes. When it comes to a draft.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna save some of my thoughts as I went, as you guys remember, and as people probably are already thinking when I picked that as my number one. There's themes and there's ideas in this story and that are prevalent in Auntie Cherry's work in general that have resonated with me on a profound level, and I'll just lay it out and say something in a lot of my faves that you're gonna see is that these stories speak to what it means to be a wedgie fetishist. This very profound question that plays itself out in so many of my stories, but also so much of what I think about every day. So Luckily Unlucky was one of the first stories I read that did that. For those who don't know, a brief summary of it is that a fetishist shares and explores her sexuality with her best friend, and that, to me, also is just one of the most simplest but effective setups in community history in some ways for a character discovering what the fetish is, the humor of the story, and also very deep and powerful emotions as they form new connections with people and grow and sort of come of age, and wedgies are just so prevalent. I think it's a perfect mix of all that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it should be pretty obvious to everybody, especially amongst you guys, but for anybody who's listened to the for previous episodes of the podcast, my all-time favorite story is Lucy and Daniela by our very own hannsgutherson. And I like what you said about Luckily Unlucky, about it. It's exploring fully what it means to be a wedgie fetishist, and I think Lucy and Daniela goes above and beyond that just to answer the question, what does it mean to be human? That's probably the number one reason why I like it so much. But there's everything about it. There's no end in sight to the amount of things I could list about why it's my favorite story.
You did a whole podcast episode basically doing
2
that.
episodes, actually. That's why.
It was awesome. Go listen to it.
Absolutely. Definitely listen. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. Yeah, I can't really say much else about it that I haven't already said. Chaos, what's yours? What's your first story?
Mine was definitely one of the first few stories that I really got invested in when I first came to the community, and that was Val the Vampire by Puppy Dog, where it was definitely like a fever dream for the opening of it, but just the charismatic nature of Val, and I'm blinking on the protagonist name. I'm pretty sure it's Rosie, but I could be misremembering. But yeah, just the dual nature between the two. One not fully sure what she's doing, while the other, spoiler non-spoiler, she's a vampire.
What?
Yeah, I wonder how
And
that could
just-
come about.
and just, but yeah, just showing that just the confidence that comes off of her, that everything else is a game and she's doing what she wants to do other than just walking through life,
Yeah.
which tends to get pretty humorous when Val's just like, oh, spank me, I've been such a naughty girl, oh. And it's like, stop it, go back to your bunk.
The true horny bonk.
And Puppy Dog was responsible for a good number of the early stories. I remember.
Alrighty.
I can't remember any of the.
Yes, if you're.
I can't remember any of the other titles by them, but I know that Puppy Dog was a sort of big name back in the day.
Yeah, had the privilege of working with them when NeufAtora's Alchemy Trials first came out.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Back then, I could create a plot, but I couldn't write.
Mhm.
And so they helped with 4 of the 5 original chapters.
Did they have much else, Chaos? Do you remember? Like other titles they did?
Yes, which some of them are in the honorable mentions.
Okay,
So I'll
great.
just wait until later on.
No spoilers. I love it. Thanks, Chaos.
Awesome. JCCW, you're up.
All right, so I am going to give a good old shout out to a huge series by a big name, good old Friend Sessions by AP. Absolutely phenomenal story. I remember pointing this out in the last recording session where our favorite stories really tell a lot about what we enjoy most about the fetish. And
Definitely.
and if I remember correctly, what I said that I loved most about the fetish was specifically underwear. Anytime a story can describe it well, I'm going to absolutely adore it. And Friend Sessions just embodies that absolutely perfectly, with each girl with each distinct girl having a distinct like type of underwear that each of them enjoy wearing. You're able to tell a lot about every single one of them, and you're able to enjoy the dynamic that they have together. And I think if I had to give a shout out to a specific part in Friend Sessions that I enjoyed the most, it would be Friend Sessions 9, where they're over at the sleepover and shit goes down, and it goes down hard. And that was when when I first had read through Friend Sessions, I had loved the story up until that point, but when I hit that scene, my mind was like, holy crap. Like, I had never seen a Wedgie story go that far into the fetish, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my goodness, like this is absolutely crazy, but I adore reading it. I think I find it really interesting how what each of the girls like loves the most about like going through the fetish, and I it is a trip and a half going through all of this. Doesn't even have like not every wedgie is one that I even enjoy. I really don't like messies, and that's the entirety of chapter 9 too. But I still just love the introspective part of the story. That's what that and that cements Friend Sessions as easily one of my favorites.
Yeah, the fact that the part of the story you enjoy the most is the part that has the kind of wedgie that you don't enjoy necessarily. I think that just speaks to how well it's written.
Yep.
Nice.
Everybody should read Friend Sessions. I've been saying that since day one. So thank you, JCCW, for giving it the love it deserves.
Absolutely. One of the
Definitely gonna
one of the
do
first stories that made me realize, yeah, wedgie stories are awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Preach it.
Yeah, it is interesting how we kind of all have that story.
Mhm.
All right, Hans,
All
you're
right,
up.
Ryan.
Yeah, round 2, the number 2. But you know what they say? 2 is the best. My
It was the
number
worst,
2
they say.
story is. That's right.
Second is the
Yeah.
worst.
Well, my 2s are the best. So my second is Blood Money by Nicely Done. This is a story, as people know, if I've ever talked about my favorites, this one inevitably comes up. Um, for those who don't know, it's from 2013. It's a tutor moves into a mansion where she meets two very different young women. And this story is my favorite for multiple reasons, including how well it's written. It's rare to see a story that's this clean, but also this creative, this poetic, as Blood Money. Incredibly intense wedgies that are super detailed, but also the amount of emotion Nicely Done captures in this is incredibly unique and really differentiates it from most other stories that have been written in the community. And it's super underrated too. When I think about how popular some other stories are and how popular this one is, but how good it is compared to so many others. I really love it. The ending of that story, every time I read it, still gives me chills, and I just think it's so beautiful. And again, like it's this exploration of what it means to have the fetish, how you interact with people who have it, when you don't, and discovering what it's like to be dominated by it. It's all these great questions that I think when you read it, um, it's more than just like, wow, this is hot. It stimulates your mind in a lot of ways, and has you asking like really deep questions that I think are really great.
So you really could say it was nicely done.
Yeah, the classic joke. He's great though. He's such a talented writer,
Yes.
and that's like, in my opinion, their best story. But they are an incredibly great writer.
Yeah, I don't think there is a single story that Nicely Done has done that isn't a top grade, top shelf story. They're all hard hitters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for my second one, there's another one that I did an episode on, and that is Karate Friends by Saseda. Again, I've already done an episode on it. So
Here we go on the Cicetta fan train.
Oh, there's plenty more in the honorable mentions. But yeah, I mean, listen to that episode as well. That was a great one. Two-parter as well with Hans. It was one of the first stories I ever saw that really opened my eyes to what a story could be. It really, so in my mind, set the stage for so many other stories to come around with that started to be. I think it was one of the first stories one of the first major stories to shift the focus from getting off to focusing on characters. And that is absolutely such a major and important thing in this community, and it's helped that shift of focus has really helped the writing of the community in general only increase exponentially. Like to this day, I'm never going to forget the cast of characters delivered in that story. So yeah, Chaos, you're up.
All right. My next pick is Wedgie Academy by Wedgie Addict. Or if that's not the original author, then I apologize. I'm blanking on who it originally was done by. But yeah, if themes was to just go off of what I picked, it was definitely the characters for this one. Well, other than the premise itself of being at an isolated academy where the rules are definitely intense, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
Where you have to be a certain year to even be able to buy certain type of panties at this university, and just what it takes to even get the currency to even afford basic luxuries such as that. And maybe it's a little on the nose for my username, but it's a very chaotic story. Which sadly is part of the reason why it never got continued after the Wendy board went down, and it got posted on Lucky Fetish. Was that it was at a point where it was just very chaotic.
Yeah. It also had a vampire. See the connection, Chaos.
Yes.
Yeah, that story was wild, but it's worth noting, like, when Wedgie Girls goes down and then Lucky Fish forms and merges, it's one of the few stories that someone took the time to copy over and paste. And that was India who did that. So clearly, like, it meant something, and it was worth to them. Like, it had enough value and meaning to be shared with the next generation. That's an oversimplification because we weren't really next generation, but that, like, with a new group of readers. So yeah, no, I remember reading that one. It is crazy. The fountain, you remember the iconic fountain? That gave me like nightmares, but like the good kind of nightmares. It was wild.
So I guess the opposite of nightmares would be wet dreams. So is that what we're having?
No,
Oh,
it was
geez.
scarier than that, but in a good way.
Okay, I don't know what a good nightmare is, but alright.
Oh, read the story. You'll understand.
Yeah, if I did, that was the one that I read a long time ago then, if it's on the Lucky Fetish board.
It's very old now. Yeah, it's from,
Yeah,
this is what,
very
2011, right? Chaos, it would have been there. It wasn't added to then, so.
Yeah, it would have been when Lucky Fetish started, so it would have been about a year or two beforehand, I would say, when the story got first released.
Okay. Nice. And I'm gonna leave a link to all of these stories in the. I guess I can't link things to the Lucky Fetish board on YouTube because it blocks the video because it's fetish material. But I can post it in DeviantArt or something.
That and the format.
Yeah. I'll just make a Google Doc, put all the links on there. Alrighty. JCCW, you're up.
All right, my second pick is more of a obscure one-off stories by Girl-Wedgies on DA. This is called First Person Wedgie Truth or Dare, and this is where that thing that I specifically wanted to mention. This is why I specifically wanted to mention what we like about the fetish, is represented in our favorite stories, because the description of the girl's underwear in this story is one of the best that I've ever read, and every single time without fail, this story has gotten me like perfectly. This is a now like this is everything that I want out of like this fetish. It's everything that I want to experience because it's got an embarrassed girl, it's got embarrassing and yet still kinky underwear, and it's got her even getting into it a little bit at the end. And that is just everything that I want out of a story, and I fucking love it. Oh, I love this story so much. It is so perfectly kinky for me. And yeah, easily one of my favorites. I try and channel like what this story did in all of my kinky scenes.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely is an interesting look. I'm not quite sure
And
what
that's
my
all I gotta
stories.
say about that.
I'm not quite sure what my stories.
Awesome.
I'm not quite sure what my stories say about my tastes in the fetish, but it is an interesting look if you analyze it. Alrighty, Hans, you're up again.
Oh wow, that was fast. Yeah, number 3 is Sadistic by Cosby Rerun, which I absolutely adore. Um, Very similarly, it's about a wedgie fetishist exploring her desires, and if we're talking about what these maybe reveal about us, it's that I'm into domination. I like to see a lot of domination and submission in stories. I've always felt like that's a core of the fetish and what we want out of it in some ways, inevitably. And you see that with most of my picks, other than like the intimacy factor and how nice it can be when couples get together. That's also a through line in my picks. But with Sadistic, as the title sort of hints, there is this intensity and this very like deep interior mind of the protagonist who is very cold in some ways, but really just desperate to sort of get wedgies and give them, especially give them. So I think it speaks to that sort of stage some of us go through when we're younger, where we're horny and we're manipulating to try and get them, and doing whatever we can to set them up in real life so that they happen. So again, it's this question of what it means to be a wedgie fetishist, and this question answers it by saying it is to be this sort of different, manipulative, potentially cold, maybe sort of person who's really obsessed with them. But what's hinted at in the story, and what I maybe we would have seen if it continued, because of course all of the stories I picked, well, 3, sorry, of the 5 I picked are unfinished. Sad face, cry, cry, cry.
Yeah.
What we maybe could have seen in more of Sadistic is her life broadened beyond the fetish, which is always an interesting question too, because so many of the characters we write about, Chaos, JCCW, I think you might agree this is true. They're very obsessed with the wedgies. So having a broader life beyond that is a cool shift, and we don't obviously see that in Sadistic, and in some ways that's good because it's so focused on the wedgies. But it speaks to what that means, I think, to be so interested in them. But beautiful story, great, super well written, and also just fantastic wedgies.
Definitely. That one always sticks out in my mind as well as just one of the pinnacles of writing, especially just looking at all the stories on LF. But yeah, I really like what you said about like taking a look outside of just the fetish in the story, because I think that helps fully realize the character for the reader. Um, and if you're not one to plan out what you're writing ahead of time, it helps you fully realize the character. It fleshes them out and makes them feel like a real person, as opposed to just the character exists for this story alone. And I think that's some of the best stories in general in life is ones that are just a snapshot of part of their life, and you're intruding on it for a moment, but they've been living before it and they will live after it.
Yeah, and the 4 we could talk about whole podcasts about characters and what makes them good, but I think it's interesting to think that, like, as obsessed I am with wedgies and characters being obsessed with them, the characters to me that are always cooler are the ones that have other interests and other aspects to them, like a character who, I don't know, is like a like a rocket scientist who's building a rocket or something, and like, so she's got like this deep like richness to the character, right? So it's not one note, not one dimensional. I mean, there's a hotness obviously to someone who's cartoony and just obsessed with the wedgies, like Hannah, not Hannah and Sarah, because she's different, but Hannah from Between Two Cheeks. There's so many Hannahs now, you gotta specify. His Hannah, who's like one dimensional. She's also a nurse, but mostly just a wedgie lover. But then, yeah, if you compare that to like a Hannah and Sarah, which is interesting, they have these deeper backstories. They have these quirks, like Hannah can't handle her alcohol, which really fits into her cute wedgie taking nature. Spoiler alert. But also, of course, the whole detail about the drama club. That's not what they are. They're Broadway level performers, but that whole passion that they have. So they're more interesting to me than like the one note characters. So when you get like a sadistic and they're super focused on the wedgies, it's a great exploration of what's lost, which is something we don't often talk about when they're so obsessed with wedgies. Like, what are they missing out on? And I think that's something we don't see enough of.
Wow. Wow, that's not an insight that I've ever thought about before. We should definitely do an episode on that. I like that.
When I eventually finish Hannah and Sarah, we'll do an episode on that.
Yeah, when I eventually finish Fortunate Events, we'll get around to that as well.
So in like 2042, when they also release GTA 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the $1,000,003 release of Skyrim.
Yeah.
That'll be tomorrow.
Okay. Well, for my third.
All right.
It's
Neuf, I think you're next.
Yeah, my third is You Give a Girl a Wedgie by Arctime. It is just one of the cornerstones, I believe, of writing in this community. It's got something for everyone. With only 3 options to choose from, just about every single person can go into that story and get something they want out of it. It is almost as perfect as it can come.
If that list of wedgies isn't the most popular thing the wedgie community has ever written, it's probably this story by Arctime that is the most popular.
For so many reasons, but a couple of them, as I just said,
absolutely deserved.
I
think what's fascinating about Arctime's story is the fact that it really it's set up just how popular like you stories are. Anytime you have like a you story and you can do it like especially well, it's going to be one of your most popular stories. Simply due to the fact that people love the format and they love being able to feel like, yes, I'm actually in this story. I can actually get to give a girl a wedgie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's worth noting Arctime sort of kicks off this trend in 2015 with that story and a couple others around the same time that are you, including Sleep All of Today's Survive the Day. No, that's not. That's interactive, but what's similar is that this You Give a Girl a Wedgie is also interactive. So it blends these two sort of things that are now kind of trendy, but at the time in 2015 we hadn't seen much of. So in some ways it's very seminal, and yeah, it's not more popular than the list of wedgies, but it's close. So
yeah,
and that in itself is a massive feat.
But for a story as opposed to just a list, it's probably the most successful. There's nothing in the way of plot or anything. You're just thrown into a situation and you get to wedgie 3 girls. That's it. But it's one that I will never forget ever, and it's always have a special place in my heart, and a little bit below the waist.
Also,
I mean, let's be honest here.
Also, Noof, I didn't ask you this last time, and I want to make sure I ask it this time. Which path in Arctime story is your favorite one to take?
All three.
That is cheating. You
It's
can do
not.
that.
I like,
Wow.
legitimately every single time I read that story, I read every single choice. Every time.
Well, that's fair.
He's going for the secret ending.
Arctime should write the secret ending to that.
Should. Yeah, should.
I
Actually,
think
I'm curious. What's everybody's favorite in that story?
The third one, that's my fetish.
That
I
fits.
don't recall reading the story, unfortunately.
My
Wait, you haven't read it, Chaos?
My favorite, even though it's not the character that I actually like the most in a story, I really enjoy the second one the most. I think I just like the girl's like determination of like you can do it harder than that.
Yeah, that if
Yeah.
it was just the fact that it was a thong wedgie, that would not be. I wouldn't pick that one as a favorite, but it's the fact that she eggs you on to keep going, and like it
It's like the most perfect like thong wearer in like a story.
yeah.
Like yeah, she's like the like she's got the stereotypical like I'm a tough girl, so of course I wear this, but it's more than that. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so tough that I could take this, so I'm going to take it. Watch me.
Yeah. Just every single path in that story just hits some kind of aspect of the fetish for me. If there was a way to combine them all into one path, that would be the perfect one, but ugh, all I got to do is read every path. I
You
think it's
wedgie all three girls at the same
Eventually,
time.
it'll be Breath of the Wild where all of them converge.
that's why I was gonna say that's probably the secret ending is where they all at the end they're all talking together, they're all conversing about their wedgies.
Yeah. They're like, wow, we really tricked that guy. What an idiot. Some weird thing. You're just like, what? You're like so thrown off.
Alrighty, Chaos, you're up.
All right, this next pick is another one of the first writers that I became aware of when I first came to the community, and it's As You Wish by Jack 5384, or as he's also known as Alistair Cade on DeviantArt. And again, very much its character. It is the bubbly nature of oh, why am I blinking on her name?
Victoria.
Yeah, there we go, Victoria the genie,
Yeah.
and just how much she's egging on the protagonist to just do something. Yeah, you might be a nerd, but do something. Live out that fantasy. And then, unfortunately, the wedgie board went down, but at least they came out with a big bang and just started off with a big giant wedgie war with how the Lucky Fetish version started off. And it all starts with two simple types. And then it just spirals out from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's definitely the character of Victoria, her sister, and the protagonist. Unfortunately, it's been so long. I'm blanking on.
Is it James? Does
name.
that sound right?
Yeah, I want to say it is James.
I want to say James.
Mhm.
Yeah, that story's wild, and I've talked about how seminal it was for me. Like that giant wedgie war is obviously like an inspiration for Lucy and Daniela in the ending where the whole school erupts. But I was like, I can't pull an Alistair Cade and write that in the first 4 chapters of my story. I'm not a maniac. I can't pull it off like him. But I love that guy. I had him write like the word to a collection of short stories I did because he's such a hero to me, and he was one of the first people I had on my podcast, and he's absolutely a delight. But that story is so wonderful. Definitely recommend people check it out, if just to see how wild a story can be, but how fun. And yeah, Victoria James and Victoria's sister, who as soon as you said that, Chaos, I remembered that sister's crazy, but in the best way. In the best way. Thank you for reminding me
I want
about
to say
that.
that it's Sarah, but I'm blanking on what her name is.
I'll say Alice or something, but I think that's wrong.
Potentially, or
Time to reread it.
I'm sorry, Alistair, but
Sorry,
it's
Alistair.
just been that long.
Yeah.
Well,
Write more of it, my man.
you never have to worry about
Please.
forgetting something with Hans in the room because he'll remember.
Until right now.
My curse. Yeah, until you ask me the sister's name and as you wish. If it's Alice though, give me $1 million.
I'll give it to you in Canadian dollars.
Which is funny because Alistair is also Canadian.
Yep.
Alrighty,
We're the best.
JCCW, you're next.
All right. Well, this next pick is entirely biased because when I reread this story, I'll just be real. It's not a great, grand story like anything that there exists nowadays. This is a very simple, very flawed story, but I do not care. I absolutely adore it. The story is Amy Wedgie's Wedgie Game because it is a really short story. You could read it in 5 minutes. But that's kind of what I love about it. It was one of the first stories that got me into the community, and I read it because it was super quick and it got to the point really easily. And also, every single time Amy Wedgie ever describes underwear, it is kinky as fuck. I absolutely adore it, and yeah, there's not much to talk about with this story other than I love every single wedgie in it. I love the quick setup. It's like such a great setup to imagine. I think to myself, damn, I wish I could be one of the boys that walks in at the end of this story and get to see that entire scene happen because my little heart would just explode.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore the story. I could name off like so many more Amy Wedgie stories, but I felt the need to just pick one for this submission, and I had to pick the one that I started with. I love this one. It makes me feel so nostalgic.
Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's the first stories that people find is that almost always stick with them the longest.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that's how You Give a Girl what a Wedgie was for me on when I first migrated to DA. So yeah,
Makes sense.
Hans, you're up again for the fourth one.
Yay! Thank you. So my fourth pick is Haley the Bully by Magni Pulls. I love this
Good
story.
one.
Yeah, for those who don't know, it's a bully trying to find her place and herself in the wedgie-filled world of Magni Pulls Calypso-verse, which recently came to an end. So sad. And to me, the most important thing about this story that people need to understand is that it's a love letter to wedgie fetishists in the community. There's more than like a dozen references to other stories and writers and characters, and maybe most importantly at all is the reveal that happens right near the end that the protagonist Haley, spoiler alert, is a wedgie fetishist herself. So that sort of recontextualizes all of the action in the story. It's about her coming to terms with the fetish. It's her dealing with all the ridiculous number of wedgies that are around her and trying to figure out where she fits in this. Is she going to be a bully and be mean to people and take advantage of the wedgies happening? Or is she going to try and protect people, still giving wedgies, but for good reasons? Does that make her a bully? These like really interesting questions. And then mixed in with Magni-Puls's humor and the drama of it, it definitely feels like a TV show at points, and he plays into that, like when the cheerleaders do a dramatic boss scene entrance and a character notes like, why do I hear boss music, like the old meme and stuff. So there's that humor to it, which is wonderful. But really, the questions it raises about the fetish and how much sort of respect and love it shows to different characters, and just how Haley interacts with other people around her. It's really just a wonderful, wonderful story that I think should be on everybody's list to read before they die.
Agreed.
I mean, Magni Pulse is just one of those writers that you should read their entire catalog before you die.
It's true.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
If you're a
It's true.
newcomer into the community, like he is a must read. You've got to read basically everything he's ever done.
Yep.
Yeah, I
I
have.
want the Michelle Calissa crossover, JCCW. That's what I want.
He already did a crossover. He finished something of Hana and Sarah faster than I did. Well, he included Hana
was
in
cool.
that though.
Yeah. I remember I was rereading that. I was like, wait, Han's in this?
Yeah.
That was so good. The what's that called? It had a math name. That's why I don't remember it, because I hate math.
It
It was
was
awesome in that.
it was that like like the Newton's ball thing where you're
Yeah,
like
yeah. I'm gesturing to him. I'm like banging my fingers together to try and signal what that looks like. That was a great story.
he had a great idea there when he
Was
said
it the physics of giving a wedgie swing? That's what it's
physics.
called?
Yeah, that
Physics
was
of a wedgie swing.
that was fun to be a part of.
Amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I have a couple
Laws
of
of wedgie physics. That's what it's called.
I think like he actually messaged me while he was writing that, and he showed me like the portion with Hana and asked me like, "Yo, is this good?" And and, like that's just such a cool that's such a cool dude thing to do. Like
So cool.
if you're handling someone's OC and they're okay, I want to make sure this is right. Am I getting this? And I'm like, God, yeah. Thank you for showing me, man. I appreciate it.
Amazing.
yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
Noof?
So, my fourth one is one that's already been said, and I can say it this time because we're not doing a draft, and it's luckily unlucky for all the reasons that were already said. But it really just really is just one of the greatest stories ever written in this community.
Yeah.
It's if there was ever to be a wedgie literature
Hans already took
class-
everything you had to say about it.
I'm thinking of different things to say. I think if there was ever a wedgie literature class in college or what have you, that would be on the curriculum as required reading. Just like how 1984 and Watership Down, things like that. Class, it is at 100% a classic.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it. I'm not gonna waffle on about it too long since it's already talked about. So Chaos, you're up.
All right. Originally in the last recording of this, I initially said "Sore Winner" by Anti-Cherry, but let's just think of it just as a prequel to Luckily Unlucky. So let's just give it to the story since it's no longer a draft. But I would still suggest to check out Sore Winner as well, just to get an idea as to how the universe as a whole is, and just kind of see on blanking on their names.
I'm
The two
I'm
friends
really
from Luckily Unlucky, how they were in their senior year.
That's right. They cross over. Wow, I forgot that they cross over in that scene. Oh man, my mind is blown. Wow. So yeah, let's just say Sore Winner is like the little spin-off to Luckily Unlucky. So one it's even though it's this massive story, yeah, it's this one-off spin-off.
Mhm.
Wow.
You know, I am really showing like that I did not grow up on the fetish where you guys grew up on it.
And you know what
'Cause I
we're
was a
showing?
pure-
We're showing the
I was a-
Lucky Fish forums bias. That's very common for
yeah,
who came up
I-
on it. It's
like,
very
I
Fairness,
joined the
that's where the majority of the community was
Yeah.
until the
Yeah,
rise of art.
yeah.
I grew up on DA, so like I didn't read anything by Anti-Cherry until they actually put it up on DA. So I didn't grow up with it. I didn't get to experience it at all. And it really shows in the fact that I'm the only person here who didn't have Luckily Unlucky on his own favorites.
But hey, you're bringing another perspective as to who else
That's
to
fair.
check out.
Well said.
That is very
And you
very
read the stories. They're on DA now. Anti-Cheers posted them. So you can read them. You can be educated.
Which, thank God, it's a tragedy of what happened to Lucky Fetish.
Yeah.
gosh, I was about to say
Oh, boy.
I was about to say the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
That's true.
Yeah, at this point, I don't even know if I'm gonna.
It-
read
It's not a story.
I
It's not a story the fetishists will tell you.
I mean, it really, yeah, there is a bias, I guess, quote unquote, towards LF because of where we came up, but it's because the community was centered in that one area, and it's been fractured and
Yeah.
splintered since then.
Yeah, that's fair.
Unless you're more into the male stories and whatnot, then blanking on the name.
Wedgie Haven.
Wedgie Haven.
There we go, Wedgie
Ah.
Haven.
Yeah.
Gotcha that
Where
time,
that
Hans.
still had its female stuff as well, but if you enjoyed the male content, then that's the place where you essentially had to go back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Alrighty.
Hans, you're up.
I guess it's my turn.
Oh wait. Oh, that's right.
Oh.
Wow, we talked for
No,
we talked for so
bro.
long about the. I'm sorry, we talked for so long about the one thing I forgot. I forgot. I thought you already said one, but
Bro.
never. All right, so yeah,
Let me-
you're up, JCCW.
let me praise Hans Gutherson in peace. All right. Well, if Noof is the Seseta simp, I am the Hans Gutherson simp. My number 2 favorite story of all time is Wedgie Love, both parts 1 and 2. It was like I brought up that Friend Session was one of the first types of stories that really made me fall in love with characters and what it means to be a wedgie fetishist. This was the first. This story was the first time that I ever saw anything like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a part of the fetish that I didn't even know it existed at all. And I started reading it, and then I started reading basically everything that Hans ever posted on DA. So I was just kept reading through it, and I'm like, my goodness, this is stuff that I like almost needed my entire like throughout my whole life. I was so like this was a huge inspiration for me. I wanted to touch on this. I wanted to explore like what actually makes me feel strong about the fetish. What sort of things do I want to explore with characters? And I credit this story a lot for that. I credit it for delving deep into the mind of somebody who has a fetish who isn't even named, not even named, but he's exploring a whole like something so deeply personal to me, and I relate to it so heavily. I credit this story for a lot of my inspiration for the fetish. There's not enough good that I could say about it that could do it justice.
Thank you, JCCW. You're making me tear up. That's great. I remember the first time we did this too. Yeah, I mentioned, and it's true, and it's always been true. Like you have been since you started a massive inspiration to me, and I feel like, and I'm not just saying this, like you've gone on to surpass me in like every way that matters. You've such a talented writer, and all the work you do is constant inspiration to me. So I'm glad I could play some role in inspiring you to write, because you've done such amazing, amazing things in this community.
Thank
So,
you,
I
Hans.
guess beyond the obvious, read What You Love. The moral of that is Hans has
Did Noof cut out for
many.
anybody else?
I mean, I'm good. I can hear everybody.
Okay, now I can hear you. For a second, you cut
Yeah.
out for me.
Well, I have the window up, and I keep seeing like the green bar doesn't show up occasionally for me, but all right. But beyond the obvious, read Wedge You Love. I think the real moral of that is Hans has so many stories that have gone unnoticed, primarily by most people, that deserve so much attention.
What happens when you write too many stories? Chaos knows. When you write so much, JCCW, you know too. When you write so much, there's stuff that gets buried. You're like, how come they don't know about this? But it also doesn't help that I like hide some of my stories, like Chaos. When we did that Google Doc, right, of the fantasy stories, every time you, and I think you're gonna mention this story, every time you do, it makes me so happy, dude. Because no one knows about this story, but I know about it. It makes me happy. But yeah, no, it's wild. So I appreciate, of course, all the love I get. I don't think I deserve all this love, but I like it. It's great. I like getting some stories named as favorites. Thank you guys.
Well, on the
I
flip
think it's
side,
deserved.
you write too little, and nobody ever finds your stuff because you're not known.
Yeah.
Not uploading as
There's
much.
no winning.
You just gotta find that right balance.
That's it.
All right. So Hans, now you are actually up.
Yep. Number 5. Final one. So I'm taking a little different tact away from our FF focused picks to name the story Obsessed by Sato and TM 20103. This is a story on Wedgie Haven originally, and then it was posted on Wedgie Buddies. It's a story about two guys circa 2017 2018 when it was reposted. Two guys, they break up, and one of them has the fetish and one of them doesn't, and they end up sort of getting back together again after trying to find different partners but realizing they're still in love with each other. So very romancy, very sappy, but really well written, really great take on sort of what MM stories are at their best, which is not making it weird to be gay and really celebrating that sort of aspect and diversity. Plus, again, really detailed wedgies. It's, if you've read like my teacher wedgie fight story, it feels kind of similar in those ending scenes where they're trying to like, they've separated. It's a very rom-com-y thing. The characters separate and they sort of have to come back together. It's very much captures a lot of that in a really powerful way. But with some very nice wedgie scenes that parallel each other really nicely. One of them is giving and one of them is getting, and you could tell like there's something missing when they're not together with these characters. So it's beautifully done romance and just a super well written story. So if you're not into MM but you want to read a story just to see what that's like or to sort of understand that other part of the community, highly recommend this story. I think it's one of the best, definitely.
Nice. I think that speaks.
Definitely not into MM as much, but I think it'd at least be a little bit fascinating. I've been getting a little bit more into FM, so think it'd be an interesting read.
Huge market for FM stuff. You should write some of it. Calissa, giving some wedgies to some dudes.
gosh.
I'd read that. Be amazing.
I'll see what I can do with that.
Thank you.
I think
Yes, you're welcome, community.
I think Hans, your picks speak to just the well-roundedness that you have in the community, the sort of worldly view that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I've realized kind of when I was younger that I was into everything. If there were wedgies, I was gonna find it hot, which is easy, but then also tricky. But yeah, so I've read like a good number of MM stuff. FM obviously is great. MF, like whatever combination of the letters you can shove together in the alphabet. Um, I've always found something to enjoy in a lot of those, and like I said, I've tried to be wherever wedgie fetishists are. So that means even reading stuff on Wattpad, which is an often unfortunate experience, like
Yep.
a late experience project. But you do get to learn a lot and see and find new inspirations in places too.
Yeah, that's very true. You never know where you're gonna find a gold mine. All right.
Yeah.
Well, my fifth is Aino's Interactive Hunt by Saseda. So You Give a Girl a Wedgie was the first story that I found on DA, and it's what I think of it as more of a pseudo choose your own story, since there's only one choice to make. There's three different options you can choose, but you only make one choice the entire time. Whereas with Aino's Interactive Hunt, this was the first true interactive story that I found. It has so many different options to choose. It's like it so many different branching paths, and I've never tried to do it myself, but just listening to how other people do it, have tried to do it, and watching movies and that kind of thing, where like the focus is writing an interactive story. Um, I'm aware of how difficult it can be to write that. It's basically like writing multiple different stories for one story. Uh, so just the dedication and commitment alone to finishing something like that, and then having it pay off so well, it is it's so well done. Um, of course, there's just tons and tons of wedgies and tons of different ways that all these women get wedgies, and they're all super hot and all that. But I think it really is the fact that I can tell how much effort was put into it, and it pays off magnificently.
Yeah, interactive stories. You mentioned it when you said you give a girl a wedgie. Like they're still relatively rare. They're more of a trend nowadays with dudes like Indoor Stereos. But when Sleep All of Today did it in 2015 with Survive the Day, which Lucy and Daniela story of the year, woohoo! It was obviously a massive project with so many different chapters, and like I said, I've tried to do it, and I can confirm a huge amount of work. You are writing multiple stories, and if you want to do it good and not like the telltale approach, which everybody hated because it doesn't really feel like your choices matter, you have to do a lot of work. And as we know as writers, writing is already a tremendous amount of effort, so it quickly happens where you're like, and how many secret paths can I have? How many mechanics can I do that will raise the story? And next thing you know, you have like a million threads, and you're like, I've written 10 words, and I need a team, or I need to go back to writing like one-off little stories. So it's massive. So yeah, anyone who could pull it off, especially at the scale you're talking about, is definitely an achievement, and sort of a testament to how, at its best, the community can be incredibly creative and do really amazing things when really we don't have to. We just can write short little blurbs and those stories blow up, right? And we've talked about the stories that have shocked us because they're short or we don't think they're very good, but they get 100, 200 views and faves and watchers and all this stuff. But yeah, for someone to put in that much work, it's quite wonderful to see.
That moment when you're just
For no reward
create a story and
beyond.
end up writing the Bible.
What's that? Okay. Yeah, I mean, for no reward. I feel like you guys can't hear me. Okay, there we go. I keep seeing the green bar not show up around me. Yeah, for no reward. It was.
Alright, there we go. Now I can hear you. I'm like, oh god, where did the audio go?
Yeah, I don't know why Discord seems to keep dropping me for some reason. Maybe it's because the internet is not good for me.
So who's next now? I've lost track. Are we
Now
in
it's Chaos.
honorable mention? No, not right.
No, it's
We
chaos
got-
now.
Okay, it's
Mhm.
chaos thing.
Yes, got one more.
Is it being recorded? That's what I'm concerned about.
Being recorded if
I think we are.
Yeah, recording.
cool.
There we go. I'm like, oh god, did he disconnect?
Yeah,
Alright.
we're good.
The last one for mine is showing of self-love, mainly just because of how I felt about coming up with the story and all that. And it's Tales of the Wasteland, specifically extra episode 2. And mainly, one, it just shows just how much I place emphasis on characters. Of it's not just some simple world where, oh, are we just gonna do some way thing? It's definitely showing that there is a path and what struggles this character is going through, which won third place in Hans's pandemic contest. And yeah,
Yeah.
oh god,
Such a good,
but
such a good story.
Yeah.
No, what I love about that story and so much of your work, Chaos, is how powerful the emotions can get, how dark they can get too. But there's a beauty in it, which is great. So it's good you gave yourself some love. You deserve it. Same as
Yeah.
you, JCCW. You should have
Yeah.
named College Days and then just went through the chapters. They should have been your top 5. I would back you.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
another.
but that means to talk about my. That means I don't get to talk about my absolute favorite story.
Hey, here we go.
apologies, I ended up missing some of that. I was having some earbud issues.
I was just saying, you gotta give yourself some love, Chaos, because your stories are great. They're dark but beautiful. And JCCW has to give himself love too. His College Days is the best.
I would, but there's one other thing that's the best ever, and that leads into what my absolute favorite wedgie story of all time is. A story that I have consistently taken so much inspiration from. The entirety of Hana and Sarah started out as me thinking to myself, I want to do something similar to Teacher Wedgie story was able to, or Teacher Wedgie fight was to capture, and I created two characters, one with a one very shy, very deep into the fetish, and I want to explore, and I wanted to take mine and explore that in a brand new setting, and I have taken so much from What You Fight. I've taken the constant like mention of wedgies, and how it make the other person, or how it makes the fetishes feel. I've taken hearing them actually say it. I wanted to capture how that feels. And just the fact that they are both teachers is also something that I wanted to explore a little bit, because teachers are always really sexy. So I wanted to try and capture like what makes a teacher like so attractive to be able to get to makes them so attractive to get a wedgie, and I put that into what is currently my most popular story to date. The teacher gets wedgie to use story. I wanted to take what I got from Claire in Hans's story. Oh wait, not Claire.
LaQuisha?
Yeah, LaQuisha. I wanted to take sort of the abrasive or tougher part of LaQuisha and put that into what is the you character in the story, who is a teacher. And I wanted to sort of capture that and sort of capture how easy it is for like somebody who isn't directly affected by or directly into the fetish would actually talk about it. And I think I captured it decently, but definitely not as well as Hans. That was probably the second story of Hans that I ever read, and that one, like, I got so much out of it the first time that I read it. Like, I think I actually reread it like 5 times, and that is not normal for me. For any sort of story, it's hard for me to reread it like multiple times after I had just already read it, but I didn't care. I just wanted to read it. It it has a history with me. I take a lot of inspiration from it, and also all of the descriptions of Claire's underwear is just so kinky, and I love it. Absolutely
Amazing.
favorite story, and so far nothing has been able to top it.
Well, spoiler alert, you might have something coming in a bit that'll reignite your love for that story a little bit. Finally. I won't say more.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, I think you'll like it. But no, thank you again, JCCW. I know that's a story that's a bit underrated. I think from my, like we mentioned, when you have a huge catalog, it's easy to forget about stuff. So
When you
glad
have
you really
as
like
large
that
as
one. That one
YWNR, like it gets lost in
it
there, but
does.
I'm never
Yeah,
gonna forget it.
I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Well, while we're
thank you,
talking
thank you.
about bringing back old stories, how about bringing back Lucy and Daniela?
You got your art. You're good.
It's
Some
not
stories
enough.
don't have art yet. I'm winking to JCCW. Some stories don't have art yet. Teacher wedgie fight. Spoiler alert.
Wow,
That
fans
one,
of that story's
if any of them, I remember telling you like you need to get art of Claire and Lucia. Like like one of the first things I ever said to you. It's like you need to do this.
Yeah. And let's just say somebody's doing it. Spoiler alert.
I'm not gonna ask who it is. I want that to be a surprise.
Yeah. If it turns out nice, it's gonna be real nice. Chaos, one day you'll make more art for me, please. Please make art of all my stories, Chaos. I'm not an artist. I can't do it myself. You gotta do it for me, Chaos.
You unfortunately know how slow I am at that.
It's true. You're busy, dude, too. You're turning Shitoru's Alchemy Trials into an anime, so I have to wait till that's done. But if you need voice actors, I'll play all of them.
All right. So that was all the picks for top favorite stories. But now I think we should talk some about our honorable mentions. And my mindset with the honorable mentions is that, especially after going through again and making sure I didn't miss anything and realizing that I missed quite a bit, the honorable mentions to me is the stories that don't immediately come to mind right away when I think of my top favorites or when I'm talking about them with someone. But as soon as I see it, I'm like, oh my god, yes, that fucking story, that yes. So they're like second place where the favorites are first place. Um, so I know we all have a bunch. I'm not quite sure if we should just go one at a time again, but let's just do it that way. So Hans, you're up.
Sure. Yeah, I'll rapid fire through these so we can get through some of them and we can scream when we recognize some of the names. Sore Winner, of course, by Auntie Cherry. Reggie Wedgie by Auntie Cherry. Great FM story. Marcus and Liz by Bizarre Atomic is wonderful. College Days, of course, by JCCW. Love that story. I still wish I had contributed when he asked, how should I end this story? And I just spent days thinking about how we should have ended. He gave us these choices, and I totally didn't respond, but I'm glad I didn't because his ending was so good, and I'm so happy. Jake and Gwen by Wedgie Lover 109. Their new story, Inheritance, might be on there too. It's very good as well. Friend Sessions, of course, by my bro Anime Panties. PPA, aka Panty Pulling Agency, by Who. Super intense wedgies and really just creative stuff. The Untitled True and Fictional Stories on the old Wedgie Girls website. They had like one about like a soccer tradition, and the first one was like someone gets lost in the woods. This is apparently a true story, and they get a lot of wedgies. Those were really seminal for us on Wedgie Girls before we came on.
Yes.
Jotoro's Alchemy Trials, because I love that story, including the scene. Chaos knows the alley scene. But it gets crazy, and I know I love that story. And I've defended it when people are like, yo, there's demons, where are the wedgies? I'm like, yo, you don't get it. The demons are the wedgies. They don't get it, Chaos, but I get it. And I think that's it. I think I rapid fire through.
Nice. I see you noticed. I noticed that you didn't mention a couple of JCCW stories that you mentioned last time.
Yeah, you know what deserves a mention too? Fortunate Events.
Yeah. Well,
That's
all
also
right.
on the list of
That's
honorable
fine,
mentions.
as long because you didn't say the first line of it as you
Honestly,
always do.
I did. I just
Honestly,
said
the other one
all
of
of our endless sexual energies.
Oh, okay. That was the part where it cut
You
out.
missed
Okay.
it. I said it twice now. He wants me to say it again, guys. That's
No,
all it is.
I'm
He wants me
fine.
to He wants me to go line by line. He wants me to go, and then
No,
Riley.
no, I
went to
don't.
the store. He wants the whole thing.
My God. Well, I'm glad. I know that you're probably the biggest fan of it, so I'm glad that you mentioned it all the same.
Preach it.
I would actually, because I have so many, I'd actually like to go last. I have quite a bit.
All right, Chaos, you want to go next?
How about you go first, JCCW?
All right, because I think all of mine are basically going to stay the same. Thank you for writing them all down.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
As the resident theorist of this story, I have to talk about Two Worlds by AP. That one's got to be one of them. Still love that story despite all the flaws in it. I still enjoy reading it every time. As Ryan said, Marcus and Liz is another one. Another one from Amy Wedgie that I absolutely love is Lucy's Diary. I another like example of short, quick story, but with such great descriptions of the underwear, and I absolutely love it. Jane's Whale Tale by Girl Agony. Teacher Wedgie by White Granny Panties. Pre-Teaching by Wedgie Spader. Another one by Amy Wedgie, Killix Victims. An amazing series. And then everything involving Hermione in Cisetta's stories. Like, I had to include at least one thing from Cisetta, and that was the first. I think those were the first stories that I ever found from him. So I decided to go with those.
Nice.
All right. Chaos.
All right. I would mention some stories, but I know you had them on your honorable mention, so I'll leave them for when you bring them up. To first start off with, it's some of the other puppy dog stories, mainly the May and Connie series. Now, granted, Val the Vampire and May and Connie are the bigger of the series that he's released, but he's also done some DC Batwoman or whatever that series was called, just focusing on the Batman female heroes. What else do I have? Neko Squad Pink, also by Jack 538, which was a shame because the last few chapters that he released for it unfortunately weren't saved before being re-uploaded to Lucky Fetish. Then there's Camp Naname by Magni Poles, which also features one of my characters in there just for a brief scene. I don't recall if she actually comes back for the finale of that story. Which, yes, I need to finish reading that series. Hans already took this one, but Totoro's Alchemy Trials just the character development of it and what else I have planned for that series, which makes me wonder how many people are actually catching all the foreshadowing and whatnot that I'm placing in the extra stories and such. Which also on the flip side, there's the Black Robe as well, which granted I haven't released too much of it, but same idea, just seeing just how this shared universe expands and just focusing on character rather than just focusing heavily on the fetish, showing that these people actually have lives outside of it, even though Yoshi is a wedgie fetishist. And then the last two that I'll give honorable mentions to is I Was Meant to Fly with Dragons, another one from Hans, which that story in particular, a very fever dream. Definitely a very fever dream like story where you can read it and you can place where everything is, but in the same vein, it just feels like it just flows. Where you're just lost in it. And it was a damn shame that that a beautiful thing of just having a community writing project be ruined because someone decided to change dragons to sheep and other trolling BS. And then the other one, which I definitely regretted leaving out audibly in the last time we were recording this, but what was it? Veil of Shit. Sorry, Veil of Souls. And for me, what made this special was that it's the first story that I recall reading from a good friend. And we weren't friends at the time. I just remember just reading the first chapter of it, of potentially collaborating with this writer and seeing what may come of it. But otherwise, go check out Shadow Melder's other stuff and also the other series that him and Hans have released, Dulling of the Knife and Flame into Darkness. Or did I get that last one right?
Yeah, Dulling a Knife and Flame Over Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for those shoutouts.
Yeah,
Shell Melder's great. Everybody should read Nightfall by Shell Melder and
Mistborn.
most of his stuff. He's doing commissions now too. Go commission Shell Melder, or else.
Or else. I just wanted to cut into the podcast real quick and just say immediately following this, for whatever reason, Discord stopped recognizing my mic, so the three guests won't be able to hear me, but the software that I use still captured my voice. So you'll hear me speaking a little bit, but they won't be able to hear me. So just to give you a heads up.
Now here's one that I'm super interested in hearing. Noof, you said you had a long list.
So yeah, these guys can't hear me right now, unfortunately. So I sent them a message.
here?
Put him to sleep.
They're
He's getting more for his list.
Oh, jeez, not more.
come on.
Yeah,
they
we
can't
can't
hear
hear
me.
you, Noof.
All right.
Of course. I've
Uh,
seen this happen a couple times with recording stuff. It's like if you don't speak for a while, then it just like the audio cuts out for some reason and it makes no sense.
Here's what we can do enough to keep things moving. You paste your list in, and I'll rapid fire. I'll read them off, and I'll do my best impression of you, and I'll do a nice outro, and
come on.
it'll be great.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
No, I was gonna say this like when Noof was talking about like how we all have distinct voices. You have the most distinct voice out of anyone in the community.
There was somebody, I think it was Rickus Spades, who's like, I get to listen to Hans's dulcet tones. I had to look that up. It means like the voice is not the prettiest, and I get it. So it's funny when I think like, oh, I should do like audio versions of my stories. I'm like, nobody wants to hear that.
Oh, this is so annoying.
Nobody. I wouldn't want to hear that. I'll tell you that right now.
So annoying. All right. Well, it can't.
In fairness, it does fit for characters like NeufAtora.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to
D&D.
send them the list.
And when I get to do Chibi-chan from your story, oh, Chitoro! It'll be great. I'm practicing. I've shared your list and I can read them off.
Rip Noof.
So they can't hear me, but I'm
Yeah, the
I'm
long
going to
list.
read
I
it
was
out.
super excited to hear it.
Send me the list. We'll take it. We can, all three of us can read some of on your list because we'll probably get tired before we reach the end.
So yeah, I'm gonna send it to them real quick.
Okay.
And I guess they'll read
We'll
it
each
out.
take a bunch. We'll just start naming them off. Oh boy, that looks okay. It's not that bad of a
That
list.
is a big ass.
It's not as bad as I thought. I thought it was gonna be like 40 pages with like chapters and like. Yeah, I was worried. This is a good looking list though. I'll name like the first like 5 or 6 and somebody pick them up after me. So he picked a really good one. The Remote by V Vickers, which is a really for me it was a huge story that it was just so creative. It had this sort of like fantastical nature to it, but really great story, really hot. Unfinished. I commented, if you look on Lucky Fish forums, you see I just commented inanely on this story. It's great.
Hey,
White Rabbit, as some of you probably know, is Sleep All of Today. That was his name on Lucky Fish forums. This is like a Groundhog Day time loop story, and interestingly, he left it open for people to write their own, like what would happen on different days. And I did. I contributed to this, but nobody remembers that. They remember Sleep All of Today's part, which is for good reason. His part was great, and this was a really fun story. Next, he has A Schoolgirl Slave and Her Master by Flame Feet. Super hot title. I'm sure I know that story, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know if you guys recognize that title, but the title intrigues me. I think that's great. The Tale of Wedgie Girl by Colin Washia, which I do know. Colin Washia is also a fantastic writer. He's written far too little on Lucky Fish forums. But this is a very fun story about a woman who gets bullied and then sort of takes revenge on her bullies as like a superhero character and has a great standoff with the villain in the end. And then he has Anne on Manhattan, which I know is a big inspiration for him and is one that I think he edited on NeufAtora. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Neuf. I think you did some editing on that and played. Yeah, he's confirming that. He did editing on that, so it's a story he helped bring to life, which is always very powerful. He completely edited it. Sorry, thank you. He's clarified. He completely edited it. Which is obviously super powerful. And the last one I'll throw out too, because I also contributed to this, was Arena Text Game by Pony X9, a really cool creator on Lucky Fish forums, did fun things. This was basically, he asked for people to create character sheets basically, and he would then have characters square off in like wedgie fights in an arena, which was super cool. So that was a really, really creative and fun game. And now I'll pass to one of you guys to name off some of these others on his list.
I want to name off the first one because I forgot to add this in my honorable mentions. Trials of Befriending a Trickster. Yep. If I could give a special mention, specifically part 2, where the trickster changes her entire outfit, including her underwear, which is the greatest fucking idea to me. Like, that is so unbelievably kinky. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. This next one, the title alone, is intriguing to me. Excommunicado by Wedgie74/Blightly. I want to read that one just off the title alone.
He did an episode on it in his podcast, and we talked about it. I still haven't fully read it, but he read through it. It's like a girl goes to a school, and there's different rules and wedgies happen. Yeah, recommend. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, the very first story he did a podcast on.
Switcheroo by Anti-Cherry, Not a Worthwhile Victory by Cicetta, The Office Wedgie Wednesday by Magnipoles, of course. Teacher-Student Bonding by Magnipoles, which I completely forgot about. But man, like when you bring it up, I'm like, man, that story rocked, and it actually did. It was really good. I enjoyed seeing that. Yeah, the teacher was actually a bully back then. Like that is such an interesting idea. It really goes against what people normally think about when they're like a teacher who was involved in wedgies and when they were in school. Obviously, they were the nerd. It's like, no, this one was the bully, and that's awesome. And then the last one I'll mention before I throw it over to Chaos, Jake and Gwen, especially part 20, Gwen's first atomic. I can agree with that. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's probably the best part out of all of them. All right, Chaos.
All right, and on the list here we have Game of Thrones Stories 1 and 2 by Cicetta, Teen Titans Wedgies by Cicetta, which was on the list when we tried to record this at first. And unfortunately, we don't have Noof's audio for that, so unfortunately, I can't rewatch that to see what that was all about. I'm Dead by Jack 538. One More Camping Memory by Anti-Cherry. Clumsy Robbery by Cicetta. The Switcher Wedgie Tale by Reg N. Unanticipated Revenge by Wedgie-Man 888. Terrible Bully by Anti-Cherry. Tutoring Terra. This one was definitely a favorite of mine early on in Lucky Fetish, where it is very a story that you wouldn't think of just using probabilities to write as a wedgie story unless it was Saw based on let's play a game where at this point it's tutoring someone who's not as great at subjects and just the fun relationship that builds up in these stories. Then we have Zoe's Summer of Terror by Satin Cheeks. And then finally, Haiti and Amanda by Colton Washia. That's how I would pronounce it, yes?
Yeah, that's how I've pronounced it.
All right.
I've also pronounced Cicetta as Cicetta, so don't trust me. But that's the list. That's a good list. Yeah, definitely some we recognize on there. Definitely some cool picks. Neuf, you're gonna have to come on and do a sequel where you.
Come on. Oh fuck! I can't hear anything now.
And I think we'll let Nuve add in his own outro for the book club.
Yeah, I'll do a brief one, but he could cut it out. Say thanks everybody for listening. I had a lot of fun chatting about stories. Second time around, I think we did a good job though. We hit on why we like these stories, and also why it's worth talking about some of them. And they don't get enough love, some of them, but also just the fact we're talking about them. It reminds people that these stories are worth talking about, and they're more than just to get people off. So really glad we could do this. Thanks JCCW. Thanks ChaosReacon. You guys are my heroes. Thank you NeufAtora for bringing us all together. Without you, there'd be only unfortunate events. Oh, again. I'll head off now, but so great to be doing this, and I can't wait till we all get to hang out again, write more, and talk more about the stories we love and why we love them.
Oh, and also,
Thank you very much.
yep, and hold on one sec. Before you leave, everybody, this is my girlfriend. She was listening in the whole time.
Hello.
Hey.
I could probably call them best friends in the community.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We're the best.
My girlfriend, she is very, very amazing.
I better be
You've heard
invited
great
to the
things.
wedding. I better be
Yeah,
invited to that
definitely.
wedding. I've been waiting.
All right. Now, Ryan, it's like what, 1 for you?
Yeah, it's super late. I gotta head off.
Yeah, good. Go to sleep.
12:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
See y'all.
Thank you so much for listening. It was so awesome having the 3 of them on. I don't know why I don't know why they couldn't hear me at the end. My software can still pick me up, but Discord sucks sometimes. So, if there's anything you'd like to hear discussed, if you'd like to be on the podcast, let me know. Let me know how I'm doing, how I can improve. And I will see you on another episode.